Time for our last filtering challenge. We want to create a CSV file where there's 20 or more active outbreaks in workplaces and education, or where there are more than 40 active outbreaks. Notice that we're not asking for 40 active outbreaks in a particular setting. We're just saying, give me all the rows where there are more than 40 active outbreaks. Take a moment and think about what kind of filter condition could I write to answer this question. Remember, the filter condition will provide a true or false answer for each row. You don't have to write the code for this, but think of a condition that you could write. Pause the video and write it down. So in pseudocode, we can break our problem statement down to filters. In this case, we're going to write our filter in stages. So one way that we can write our problem statement into filters is to say, well, we want to test where the setting is workplace and the number of outbreaks is greater than 20. Or if that's not the case, we'll test to see if the setting is education and the number of outbreaks is greater than or equal to 20. Or if that's also not the case, give me the rows where the number of outbreaks are greater than 40. So let's test this by plugging in a couple of test cases. So let's say the setting is equal to workplace and the number of outbreaks is 15. So if we substitute values in, we see that the setting is workplace, so this part will be true. The number of outbreaks, 15, is not greater than or equal to 20, so this part will be false. The setting is not education, and the number of outbreaks is not greater than or equal to 20. And finally, the number of outbreaks is not greater than 40. So substituting all our values in, we have true and false, false and false, and finally false, and we're combining these all with an or condition. So try working this statement through. What value will you receive at the very end? Will this entire statement evaluate to true, or will it evaluate to false? Pause the video and try it now. Well, if we work each line through, we say, well, is true and false, what does that equal? That equals false. False and false equals false. And finally, outbreaks greater than 40 is false, so this line evaluates to false. So we are comparing false or false or false. That comes out to false. So workplace and outbreaks is 15. Our filter condition evaluates to false. This is what we're looking for. Let's try another example. Our setting is workplace, and the number of outbreaks is 41. Try working this example through. If we work this example through, we see that the setting is equal to workplace, and the number of outbreaks, 40, is greater than or equal to 20. So our first line is equal to true, true and true. And what's cool is when you're dealing with or, we're evaluating from left to right or top to bottom in this case. Because our first condition of our or is true, we don't have to check the remaining conditions. Python's going to skip over that. It's going to see, oh, look at that. The first part of my or statement is true. I don't need to check the rest of these statements because true or anything is true. So the entire result works out to true or false or true, which evaluates to true. Let's try one last example. The setting is long-term care, and the number of outbreaks is 41. If we work this example through, we see that setting is equal to workplace, that is false. Outbreaks is greater than 20, that is true. Or setting is equal to education, that is false. And outbreaks is greater than or equal to 20, that is true. Or outbreaks is greater than 40, that is true. If we work each of these lines through, we see that First line is false, second line is false, third line is true. That leaves us with false or true, which comes out to true. So we've confirmed to ourselves, we've satisfied ourselves to say we have the correct filter condition. We have broken our problem statement into filters. So let's try to write this filter condition using code. How would you write it in code? Pause the video, give it a try. The first thing we're going to do is rename our columns. Our code is starting to get a bit hard to read, and our filters are getting quite long. So we're going to rename our columns by using data.columns equals, and we'll call our columns date, name, ID, group, and count. Now we can start to build up our filter. So the first condition we'll write is where the outbreak group is education and the number of outbreaks is greater than or equal to 20. So we'll create a variable called complex filter1, and we will set this equal to data group is equal to education, and data count is greater than or equal to 20. Let's test out this filter before we go any further. I'm going to create another variable called filtered complex, and this will be equal to data filtered by complex filter1. And if I run this code, I now have my filtered complex data frame, 669 rows and 5 columns. And if we check the variable explorer, we will see that all of our rows have outbreaks that are in the education setting where the count is greater than or equal to 20. Next, we can write the condition for the workplace. I'm going to use the line continuation character \, and then I will put an OR statement in. Then I'm going to copy the code we've just written for the group equal to education and the count greater than or equal to 20. And I'm going to change this 3 education to be 4 workplace. So here's the question we're answering. Is this row equal to outbreak group education and the count greater than or equal to 20? Or is the group equal to workplace and the count greater than or equal to 20? If we run this code and check our variable explorer again, we see a combination of education and workplace, and all of the counts of outbreaks is greater than or equal to 20. Finally, we have our condition, all outbreaks where the count is greater than 40. We'll use the new line or the line continuation character, and I'll write a statement that says data count greater than 40. And that is our complete filter. If we check our variable explorer, we now have education and workplace outbreaks. And if we scroll down, we now see a congregate care setting where the number of outbreaks is greater than 40. So to recap, here's our complete filter condition. For readability, we first renamed our columns. Then we created our filter. Our filter was give us rows where the group is equal to education and the count is greater than or equal to 20. Or give us rows where the group is equal to workplace and the data count is greater than or equal to 20. Or give us rows where the count of outbreaks is greater than 40. However, notice that in the education and workplace filter, that the count is greater than or equal to 20 is consistent across both of our filters. We could simplify our filter expression by using the is_in function. This will allow us to make slightly more readable code. Let's first look at the is_in to simplify our check and then implement it in the code. First, we create a list of settings. Then we will write a filter condition to ask, give us rows where the group is in this list of settings and the count of outbreaks is greater than or equal to 20. Notice how we've managed to go from 2 lines to filter on our education and workplace settings down to just 1. Let's try writing this in code. So just like on the slide, I'm going to create a settings list, and this will be 3 education and 4 workplace. These are the settings where we're interested in outbreaks where the count is greater than or equal to 20. Next, I'm going to create a new variable called complex filter 2, and I will set this equal to data group dot is in. Now I'm asking for rows where the outbreak setting is equal to one of the items in this list, either education or workplace. Then I'll put an AND condition and filter where data count is greater than or equal to 20. And our second filter condition, outbreaks where the count is greater than 40, remains the same. Data count greater than 40. And then I will create another variable called filter complex 2 to hold our filtered data frame. And if we run this code and inspect our variable explorer, we'll see that we get identical result to our filter complex 1 filter expression. Workplaces where the count of outbreaks is greater than or equal to 20. Education where the number of outbreaks is greater than or equal to 20. And we see we have a congregate care where the outbreaks is greater than 40. I'll leave it as an exercise to you to output those new data frames to a CSV file. We've now accomplished our challenge.